against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. Cover breaking news, culture, manic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Today's going to be a very special show. We have an ETF update. We don't like to talk about the ETF very much, but we haven't covered it all this week. And a lot of people were anticipating when the ETF was approved, which coincidentally was, the same day that Hal Finney tweeted out running Bitcoin so many years ago. And then the whole SEC F-up. But yeah, we're going to have a little bit of an ETF update. A lot of people were anticipating that it was going to pump, but of course, Bitcoin did the exact opposite and it dumped. But there's a reason for that. Apparently, it is Grayscale, and Grayscale apparently is dumping a lot of Bitcoin on the market, and people are saying that that's the reason that Bitcoin is dumping the way it is. But I mean, I've been in Bitcoin for a little bit, and I think I've seen this behavior before. A lot of people were so hyped about the futures. They're like, this is going to pump the price. And then Bitcoin did the exact opposite. So was this a sell the news event? I don't know, but we'll discuss all that. We also have an amazing guest today. He's come on the show a couple times now. Really enjoyed the last time he's come on the show. And of course, I'm talking about Nolan. Nolan is the host of The Breakup. Definitely recommend checking out his YouTube channel. But no more delay. Let's bring up my legendary co-host. Always up. He is smiling today. And of course, how you guys doing?
Loving life, man. Who could complain? Who could complain on these days?
Exactly.
You're doing it right then. You're doing it right. Nolan, we had a discussion earlier on, and I just got to say this, guys. Nolan has it figured the F out. He has it figured out. He's hacked life.
Look, Bitcoin changes you. So I'm already post my 10-year anniversary year as a professional Bitcoiner. So all you got to do is keep it simple and stack sats, and it's that simple, right? And I did the math. Had I not done anything else in my career, had I just worked at Starbucks and kept stacking sats from the moment I started, I would probably have more Bitcoin than I do today. Too many Bitcoiny ventures, and
it's so true.
But it's you could actually, it was all ego, and it was all like, I got to achieve this and I got to achieve that, and I love it, right? There's like a calling, and you can't help it, and you want to advance Bitcoin for sure. We've been in sort of a World War III mindset for, the minute you understand Bitcoin, you understand exactly what you're up against in some ways, and what you're trying to change, and it reprioritizes your politics and those kinds of things. So here we are, a reprioritized politics, and it looks like the world's changing to us. So that's
it does. It looks like people are finally starting to awaken. That Overton window is definitely shifting. A decade in Bitcoin, bro. So this is my 8th year this year, and it definitely changes your perspective. But what I've seen is that rabbit hole doesn't end, right? Because you've seen someone who's like 12 years in Bitcoin, and their attitude of like, I just don't, like, you can't F with me. I just don't care. But it's not like a nihilistic I don't care. It's like I have my money in self-custody. I don't have to deal with your fiat BS. I'm chilling.
One of the ways I like to think about it is that it's like with COVID, right? Bitcoiners had the least amount of adjustment to understand what was going on. Like forget the virus for a second. Most Bitcoiners knew there was a big print coming. There was something societal on a major level that would affect markets, that would affect Bitcoin. And, when we saw what it was exactly, I think Bitcoiners had the least amount of rearranging their idea of the world they lived in, right? There's still some people that got flattened by that. They were unable to rearrange their worldview to equate with what we were seeing. But Bitcoiners did, which is why Bitcoin 2021, coming out of the pandemic, was literally the first social gathering on Earth. And it was very fitting that it was Bitcoiners. I think when we think back on World War III in the same way that, a generation like our parents and us look back on World War II, and we saw the you kiss the girl and win the war and all these famous pictures. I think the Bitcoin 2021 show is going to be in that realm of like, and then look at these psychopaths. They just didn't care and they just met without masks. Can you believe it? And I think you're going to be able to chart. You're actually going to be able to use Bitcoin to chart World War III. And even, we're coming at this in terms of like political events going on. And, we had New Hampshire yesterday with the primary. And we started to hear President Trump talking about the CBDC thing. Now, I have a prediction, which is a lot of fun. First of all, I predicted that Vivek would be the person that brings this to his attention. And it looks like that's what happened. But more importantly, here's what's going to happen. We've been talking about the realignment for a long time, from red and blue politics and a realignment in America to green and orange, that it is actually woke versus Bitcoin, and that it is government centralization versus decentralization, the old system versus the new system, and that it will have nothing to do with Democrat and Republican. But here's the interesting thing: with Trump now going to be the Republican nominee, what you're going to end up getting is the whole public that always, TDS is there is such a thing as Trump derangement syndrome. Trump absolutely causes mental illness in people. People will see him speaking against CBDCs, and I swear to you, half the population is about to embrace CBDCs as a way to make Trump wrong. So you're going to start getting a situation where politics are going to realign by the summer, by 2024 summer, before the election. We're going to see politics very clearly. It's going to become more obvious than ever before that the choice is really between centralized systems preserving the World War II winning machine, which is now decayed and decrepit and is creating way more problems than it's worth, versus starting from scratch. And I think what Vivek offers, even in this, when he talks about destroying the FBI completely, after what Elon Musk did to Twitter, and Elon and Vivek speaking in that way about downsizing government, I think we're actually there. We actually do now have this way to win World War III. And what winning World War III actually means is just decentralizing American power from Washington, D.C. And we're well on our way now. I think they're in complete disrepute, right? Like they're the most, no one believes these people anymore. It's just clown world all day, every day. The new thing is that home gardening is more carbon something like the farts of the cows and worse than industrial farming.
Did you see the Kerry Lake leak? That was insane.
I saw that. Yeah,
that was crazy.
Insane. Yeah, well, the uniparty is the problem, though, right?
But they said, Nolan, they said the quiet part out loud, right? We went all like coming up with these theories, and like we basically we've caught them dead to rights, but we haven't found the smoking gun. The fact that he's like openly, like he doesn't ever say bribe, but he's like, there's some very powerful people that don't want you to run. Like that is like the super villain type of thing that you think is happening, but they're actually saying it's happening. You're just like, what the fuck is going on? This is crazy.
It's the best. We're having a great time. And I think and here's the thing about even where it goes forward as far as Bitcoin changing you and what you said at the beginning about just, FU money and all this stuff. It gets even more interesting than just the politics. And I think this is where Bitcoiners are really going to shine. It goes actually into history. Like if you think news is, wait until you see history, you guys. It's a million times faker. So this thing actually will go much further than we think. We're going to get deep into history. We're going to find out where real systems of control started. Because I think that once you understand that printing money is mind control, right? Once you understand that having root key access to people's, last time I was here, I was talking about my Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management book, right? Which is really how you can organize your relationships with NPCs around Bitcoin. But this whole idea of understanding that we are all just not rational whatsoever, Bitcoiners, everybody, none of us are rational. We don't actually use rationality to come up with things we want. We are a series of wants and fears. And we do something like rationalize after the fact, depending on if the fear is greater than the want, or we put together some logical construct using language, and just like an AI, right? We put this stuff together and then we go, oh, that's what I wanted. That's what I want, because X, Y, and Z. It's not that, right? We are still just these wants and fears. And if you can control money, you actually have mind control, because you can determine what people want, what they're afraid of. And if you have those two levers, you actually have root key access to most people's brains.
100%.
And that's where these orchestrators of money really started. Now, how it doesn't actually require many. Just a few people understanding this information a few hundred years ago would be incredibly powerful. This is dark magic of the highest order.
100%.
And Bitcoiners actually have a magical incantation that can protect us and fight back.
Yep, it's a force field. But Nolan, to your point, in terms of the Overton window, Javier Milei at the Container Conference, aka the World Economic Forum, he said exactly what you said. He's like, governments no longer need to control the means of production. They could just print money. And then you're just like, oh my God, it's happening. How did they let him speak there? That was a really bad idea. And it was Klaus who introduced him and everything.
These are not smart people. I mean, we also have to remember, I mean, there are smart people involved, but look at all of the high IQs now and where they're headed, right? They're all headed towards Bitcoin. You've got, if you just look at the metrics of who we've got, here's the way I break up World War III, right? And you can even take the old battle names, the Allies. Well, they're more like the All-Lies, right? So the Allies are now the All-Lies, right? And so the All-Lies are really against the able people. It's the All-Lies versus the able people. And the able people are the folks like Elon Musk, right? He owns like 80% of the tonnage in space. Apple and all these stupid companies, they're done, because if you just invented the internet and all these tools today, there's no way you would ever come up with an idea so stupid as apps. There's no way. The only reason apps exist is because they wanted to sell them on the iPhone to the space in the store. Right? The phone is really just a delivery system for the Apple store, and then you buy all their stupid shit there, and that's how they make a lot of money on the iPhone. So, but if you have AI and you have a satellite to phone connection, well, suddenly I don't have to decide whether it's Signal or WhatsApp or Telegram. I just say, hey, write a note, tell XYZ I'm coming, right? So you're not going to have apps anymore. They're just gone. And you're going to have this interface. You asked me if I have a new book, and I do. It's called Satoshi Wedding Murders. If you go on my website, nolanbarry.com. And it's about that. It's about a world where every human has what I call an eyeball, an A eyeball. And that eyeball is sort of your wallet. And a Satoshi wedding in this story is a little bit like royalty. Monarchs hold laws and confidence for people, in a sense, right? The crown is really this like public organism held by a human. In this world, Bitcoin liquidity is held by huge counts, almost like royalty. But the markets are very liquid. There's no material want or need. You can earn and spend, and your eyeball will help you get it, right? If it sees something funny and it goes viral, you made a bunch of money. You're fine, right? So, but here's the thing: when you get married, right? When you get married, your eyeball has to be away from you so you can join wallets. Otherwise, it'll fuck up the Bitcoin, right? So what happens is the story is it starts with the doors to this big royal wedding open, and the bride and groom are dead, and the Bitcoin's gone. It was their only moment of privacy. To consummate a Satoshi wedding, you need a moment of privacy to join the wallets. And now, but they don't actually remember how to solve crime. They don't remember how to do that, because every murder is just, you have an AI witness, and it's really just like sports. Like the hero shows up, and then you're, why'd you do that? It's like Minority Report or something, right?
Dude, this is crazy.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you spend a decade on Bitcoin. I think this is top 3 opening monologues ever on the show. So yeah, we're gonna push the news back on today's show. We're gonna push the culture forward so we can spend more time talking with Nolan. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the numbers. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. Right, guys, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now, and you can use promo code Simply. Get 15% off anything on the Stamp Seed website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 40,110 sats per dollar, 2,493. Block height 827,171. Blocks to halving 12,829. Halving estimate April 20th, 2024. Total Lightning Network capacity 4,834 or 194 million US dollars. Realized monetary inflation 1.74%, continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school. Market cap 786 billion, and Bitcoin versus gold market cap 5.71%. In the grand scheme of things, Bitcoin is just getting started. Anyways, I do want to react to this video today. Here is the head of iShares products, Rachel Gear. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Talking on Yahoo Finance. I think that if you would have told me many years ago that, you know, you would have essentially the largest asset manager in the world, you know, and the CEO, Larry Fink, just openly, you know, advocating for Bitcoin and talking about how Bitcoin can be used in, you know, countries that, you know, suffer from high inflation or totalitarian regimes, I would not have believed you. So I think this is just a testament of Bitcoin's incentives continuing to win. So it's about a 3-minute video, but I do have it at 1.25 the speed. So let's check it out.
I mean, I will say by every measure, this launch has gone incredibly well. We've really seen a groundswell of interest coming from many directions. When you look at volumes, when you look at flows, when you look at how the product itself is trading, the iShares Bitcoin Trust, what we like to refer to as IBIT, has traded more than $3.5 billion since its launch just a little over a week ago. We've brought in more than $1.6 billion in flows. We're the #1 issuer, new issuer, both in terms of volume as well as flows. When you look at the spreads, we're trading at a penny wide. This is exactly what you want to see. What we're here for is to provide investors access, and that's exactly what we're doing.
So what's next for BlackRock products? I mean, does this now clear the way for consideration of an Ethereum ETF as well?
Well, it's really interesting, and thank you for the question. It's a great question because you know, this is really what innovation is all about. We are constantly thinking about what it is that our clients need, staying ahead of those needs, and so we're going to continue to do that. We've been at the leading edge of innovation, and we will continue to be as well. It doesn't follow a straight path. It involves risk, but that's what we're here for, and that's what we love.
I'm curious, Rachel, to get your perspective on.
All right, so before I do want to kind of show this graphic, and shout out to friends over at Bitcoin Magazine, and it kind of visualizes what she's talking about in regards to kind of the holdings and the trading volume and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot to say the least. Clearly, there's a lot of interest. Yeah. So, I mean, but you would think, and my question's to you, Nolan, like you would think that the price would pump when all this is happening, but it looks like the exact opposite happened, which, I mean, I've been in the market long enough to, like, I saw everyone was so excited. I was like, this is definitely a dump that, like, I'm like, I had my suspicions that it was going to be a sell the news event, and it seems like that happened, right? So what's your take on this? And then also kind of connecting it with what you were saying in the very beginning of the show, which I thought was fascinating, which is you could make the argument that the ETF has captured Bitcoin. It's on the forces of centralization, right? It even says it in some of the disclosures that, you know, there's a disclosure basically saying that the government could seize this whenever they want. So, and that's essentially what the ETF is opening up. And part of the reason that I think that the US government finally allowed it is because they were just like, this is captured Bitcoin. We could 6102 the F out of this, you know? So what's your take on that?
No, I mean, what we're seeing So just the potential of the ETF to destroy Bitcoin first. All right. So the way I see that is indeed it can affect some buy pressure on chain in the sense that you can start obfuscating, and they can indeed, the government definitely could take it from the black rocks and all that stuff. So I think the mechanics are there for us to imagine this will happen, right? It's definitely a possibility. So I don't want to downplay the centralizing forces that are at play with this thing. However, there's going to be more than one ETF in the world, first of all, right? So this is to go to the question of, like, you'd think it would pump and we wouldn't have a sell the news thing. Well, we had a lot of the GBDC thing, and there was them unwinding. You're seeing a lot of people analyze that online. I believe you had sell pressure because of that, and there was a lot of buy pressure. But here's where it's headed next, and that's why we're doing a show. I program shows for Bitcoin Magazine. We're going to be doing a show in Hong Kong, May 9th and 10th, for exactly this reason. Because there is no sell pressure or GBDC type asset in the Hong Kong market. And they're interested in having a spot ETF approval instantly. They want to do it right now. It's coming from their largest institutions, their regulator. All these folks really want it. And what you get there is exposure to all kinds of family offices in Asia, all kinds of people who haven't been able to buy Bitcoin for a long time. So now, all of this in mind, what you're saying, going back to the original question about consolidating, centralizing Bitcoin, you can actually see now that there are choke points, let's call them. Sure, but as always, you're playing with fire. And the physics of Bitcoin mean that if you play with this type of fire, it's like playing with a nuclear rod. You're going to get burned. It's just inevitably you're going to get burned. So indeed, there will be a lot of people buying it from these places. But look how much Bitcoin is already held by individual hodlers. Look at how many Bitcoiners are never selling. The reason we're never selling is because we don't think anything else out there is money. We hold the only money in the world. And so BlackRock's never getting my Bitcoin. They're never getting your Bitcoin. They're never getting a lot of the people's Bitcoin that are already out there. And it won't take many people to start putting that leverage that we require to separate money and state. And by getting wealthy people like BlackRock to start realizing, oh, like what I heard from Larry Fink is someone who is trying to actually de-risk exposure to the US dollar and the US edifice. Right? This is de-risking. Like, he's actually talking about it as de-risking from the dollar. And you're going to see this more and more and more. The dollar existed in order to maintain the US hegemony after World War II and the petrodollar, and the one market which existed for oil and US dollars, right? We went to war if anyone tried to sell oil for anything but US dollars, but that world is already gone. It's already gone. You can sell oil for whatever you feel like now. And so in hardly any time, right? So what will happen next is the energy companies in the world simply require a reference for the price of energy, not necessarily just oil, just energy. Right now, we still only really have the Brent price. We've got the West Texas crude price. We've got a few other OPEC price, right? There's a few other oil prices in the world, all measured in US dollars. It's not going to be possible to do that once America feels the repercussions of everything it's done, both in markets in the world and all these other things. And I don't mean Americans or American companies, I mean the US government. So you're going to start to see the trade, the hyper Bitcoinization versus hyperinflation come into real contrast. And when that happens, the BlackRocks are going to be psychologically measuring wealth in Bitcoin. And the energy companies are going to be psychologically gauging energy markets in Bitcoin. So the path forward to separating money and state doesn't have to go through more plebs. We would all love to see that. Right? But the more likely scenario that we're heading into is one where wealthy institutions now understand the risk that centralized forces are giving them. Indeed, that they're holding Bitcoin for that reason and selling it for that reason. You just heard that lady talk, right? Here's the thing that's about to happen to Bitcoin. Look at how polished she was. Look at how well spoken this person was on television. We're about to get all of the financial advisors in the world. And these people know how to sell. These are the best salespeople in the world. there's a reason why the best and brightest have gone to Wall Street. It's the best paying jobs. That won't be the case in the future once we go to the Bitcoin Center. But the people who sell that future are going to be these investment advisors. And they're going to go and they're going to be able to sell Bitcoin as well as anyone has in the history of this. I was one of the first people to be on Wall Street to sort of sell Bitcoin. I did the events for CoinDesk in the early days when Bitcoin was just coming to Wall Street. So I was the Bitcoin guy that would go from CoinDesk to all of these investment banks. I met these advisors before they had a thing to sell. Very smart people, the best salesmen in the world. And so we're going to get them, like this lady that you saw on television. She wasn't, I heard in the comments, it was like the hot girl who realized, well, yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is, right? That's what it is. And so you're going to get that across the board, and you're going to get the rich energy companies. The rich energy companies don't want to be dragged down by Joe Biden. They don't want to be dragged, or by Trump, or by any politician, or by the systems that they're perpetuating. So you're going to see them de-risk, and you're going to see psychologically Bitcoin become a reference. That's what a Bitcoin standard means. A Bitcoin standard just means that Bitcoin, like water, right? Do you know how we got the metric system? It's just water. We just took the properties of water, right? And we said, okay, it freezes at this temperature and it boils. Okay, we'll make that 0. And then it boils at this, we'll make that 100. And then we'll just divide it all up. And that's where you get kilometers from. That's where you get all this from. Water would be an easy way for us to communicate our measuring system to an alien. And in the same way that it sort of was a really clever way to understand the physical environment around us, Bitcoin will be that for commercial transactions. It will be a measuring stick. It's a way to understand and accurately deploy capital, because that's only the real problem we have, right? We don't know how to accurately deploy capital because it's all gummed up by unhealthy people telling you how to be healthy, by poor people telling you how to make money, and all of this stuff. So we're well on our way, and I'm not worried about consolidated competition amongst some investment banks. I agree, it does look a little like gold. I can see the mischief can get in, but the reality is Bitcoin has been manipulated all this time. If you think Bitcoin price hasn't been manipulated all these years, you're living in a different planet. It has been, right? And we survived. We have to continue to live through this experience of Bitcoin's price being manipulated, and it will be manipulated again. There's nothing we can do about that, except keep holding and let them burn themselves. Because in the end, if you manipulate this market, guess what happens? You get burned. You get burned, and we're going to burn them, right? That's what will happen if you manipulate this thing.
Oh man, give him bars, Opti. Give him bars.
That's called motherfucking bars.
Oh man, dude, we have to have.
Yeah, I don't even need a response.
Often, bro.
Like Nolan
what?
makes our job easy. Just let
so
Nolan
many drop
rant.
mics in there. Anyways, Opti,
I'm not even responding. I can't respond after Nolan. Nolan doing our job today.
I got so many questions. Okay, so much sauce in there. Wall Street being the best salesman. So I have a buddy of mine. We went to high school together, and he ended up climbing the ranks at Goldman. And as soon as the ETF got approved, I'm like, you're on team Bitcoin now, right? Question mark. And he responded like, F you, because I've been telling him for like 8 years. So yeah, did it worry you at all, Nolan, that like, for example, Vanguard took this stance where it's like, we're not going to offer this to our clients. And then I think it was JP Morgan also that kind of like announced that as well. So it seems like there has been some type of resistance, but I agree with your point. In the long run, they're burning themselves, right? They're hurting their clients. Their clients are going to get pissed off. They're either going to go to a different place or they're going to change the leadership within that company, right? So I want to get your take on that.
No, I think that's exactly it. I think that the folks like Vanguard who are trying to make a point about this are just going to, and they might not. Like I said, I think things are headed towards a major shift. Right. So I can see people doubling down on their stupidity. I could see that. Right now, imagine this world where, Vanguard misses the boat on the Bitcoin ETF and all this stuff. And they go into Ethereum. So here's the thing Bitcoiners need to start embracing. Right. Because indeed, we want to change the world from what we exist with today, what we live with today, which is a world where, as I was mentioning earlier, the highest paid people, like in any time in history, the highest paid people, that job attracts the highest IQ, the best performers, the most talented people, all of that stuff, right? Now, Wall Street has had a monopoly on this for a long time because financial engineering with fiat money is it sort of creates a situation where these people were the highest paid, and that's really what we're suffering from right now. That's why people can say, oh, DEI and woke shit in the airplanes. It's not even true, right? Anyone can fly a plane. That's not a problem. The problem is these companies have become financialization junkies. It has nothing to do with the DEI for the pilots, right? The pilot is a pilot. They're not going to lower the standards of pilots to do a DEI thing. But nevertheless, we got the troubles with the airplanes. And where does that come from? Well, Boeing is actually really in Chicago now to do the financial engineering. They don't give a shit about what happens in Washington State with the actual engineers, right? So the financialization of everything that came with fiat has created this situation where you can't even get the best and brightest anymore because there's just too much demand for financial engineers. So you've got good ones and you've got bad ones. But this is a sign of the saturation of that market. And indeed, we will destroy some of these because we're going to shrink it, right? We're going to shrink it. And this is something I wish Bitcoiners would embrace about crypto, right? Do you know what crypto is going to do? Crypto is going to wipe out Wall Street for us. It's going to wipe it out for us. The low IQ Wall Street firms are going to buy all the shit coins that you can deal. And they're just going to keep buying them, and they're never going to stop. They're going to double down. It's going to be like that moron who was still buying credit default swaps after the market had already tanked back in 08, the one they put in the movie and all that stuff. So you're going to see these folks. And that's why as Bitcoiners, we have to actually say, well, Ethereum isn't a big enough scam. It's not big enough. We need to grow it larger because in the end, we got to get back to a world where the best and brightest just go into stacking sats and making good chairs. Or whatever, right? Good airplanes would do, but they've got to get to this point where we see that the best and brightest are now attracted to a totally different profession, where we can start to see the time preference and the Austrian economic school of thought. Right? Austrian economics, don't forget, say to you that economics, even though you're dealing with numbers, it's not math. The numbers are there. There's no math involved. It's psychological. The markets are psychological. The economy is psychological. Bitcoin is a psychological commodity, just like the dollar. And when I see Vanguard, I see the end of the psychological strength that Wall Street used to have. They're stupid. That's it. That's the way to explain it.
Oh man, this is great. This is great. I do want to give a shout out to Bitcoin Asia, guys. You can use promo code SIMPLY. Your tickets. Let's continue this conversation with Nolan, but before, let's hit the culture segment. Let's check it out.
The Daily Culture.
Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your Bitcoin stack with automated Bitcoin savings plans and instant purchases, serving clients of any size from $10 to $10 million. We love Swan because they incentivize self-custody and dollar cost averaging. What are you waiting for? Visit SwanBitcoin.com today.
All right, Nolan. Well, before we go into all the stuff you've been creating and you're working on, everyone's saying let Nolan cook more. So maybe you want to cook. Maybe you want to touch more on this whole idea of Bitcoin and politics, the Trump derangement syndrome. Floor is yours. Rant away, and then we'll plug all the stuff you're working on, brother.
Well, you can see, take Canada today, for example, right? Yesterday, we saw some amazing fake news, which was the newspaper, the fakest news you'll find in Canada, which is called the CBC. It's like the BBC, but for even lower IQ people. And so this CBC ran a headline today that the federal court found the trucker thing was unreasonable, okay? So first of all, it's fake news because they found it unconstitutional, right? So totally different. And by this, I'm talking, of course, about martial law being declared for the truckers. So here's the strain of thought you've got to see things, right? Where I see the connection to TDS and what's going on with Trump and even what you're going to see next, right? So I've made a prediction for a while now that Vivek, and here's the thing. I found Vivek spoke at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami. I found him when he went on Tucker Carlson last year, 2022, and he wasn't announced as presidential candidate yet or anything like that. He was there to talk about CBDCs, right? He was an anti-CBDC guy. I said, well, it's kind of weird that I wouldn't know who an anti-CBDC guy is. I've never heard of this guy. So who is he? Who is this Vivek? So I found, people that he went to high school with, and then he checked out. I was like, wow, this guy's legit, right? So I invited him to speak at Bitcoin 2023 before Christmas, before it announced in 2022, like really early, right? And then he announces he's going to run for president, and he has this great campaign and all this kind of stuff. But I still knew him as the anti-CBDC guy, and I spoke to him about it, in Miami, all of this stuff. So here's what's going to happen, right? They've already banned Trump from speaking on television, because he lies, right? They don't want to broadcast lies, right?
Dude, it's so crazy, bro. Like the Rachel Maddow like stops the speech. Like, we can't play this for you, and then you're just like, what type of dystopian stuff is that? This is crazy.
I watch it as comedy, but you have to understand, I watch it as comedy. I don't watch it as like, oh, I put it on to see what's doing. And then they never don't surprise me about how funny it is, right? They live in this parallel reality where they believe the lowest rubes in the world are about to vote for Hitler. Like they actually believe. There's all these people around America that are too stupid to know any better, and they want to vote for Hitler. Like they're excited about it, right? That's what they're peddling. So it's just perfect, right? It's just perfect.
100%. And
here's the problem. Here's the problem. They're going to have to put. So I believe Vivek. I predicted Vivek would be the vice president for a long time now. I predicted that. And the reason why it would be different is because he's capable. Normally, your vice president is an incapable, right? Who doesn't really like the current one, or Pence, or they've always been Biden before. They're always a little bit incapable, right? You don't want them to shine too bright. So. But Trump's old, and it's still what I don't like about him. He's old, right? As fun as he is, he's old. So I think Vivek will be the vice president, and we saw immediately the effect. Vivek showed him the audience enthusiasm to ban CBDCs, and Trump recognized it. So Trump is starting to talk about it now. Now go back to what I just said about what Trudeau did and all that stuff, and this is where it starts to converge, right? You're going to have now, Trump, I'll always admit, he's a bully who causes mental illness in the people that get triggered by him, right? That there's no way around that. There's some people who will never be able to not see him for a bully. I get it, right? I get it. But Vivek can say everything Trump says without causing mental illness, right? He can sort of speak in a language in a way that libtards or whoever else you want to call them are able to understand. And so he's going to be on television talking about CBDCs all the time on the fake news. And they're going to have to interview him. And the thing is, he's going to trigger them, and they're going to have to come up with talking points. They're going to have to distribute counter talking points. They're going to have to amp people up to deal with Vivek going on about CBDCs. So it's going to seem to a lot of people, and those talking points are going to include things like, oh, look what they did in Canada when the Nazis took over with the truckers, right? It worked. So you're going to start to see the trucker, like that was a good idea, right? Like the whole thing with the truckers was a good idea, is what you're going to hear them say. And you're going to create a situation where, I mean, that's why Robert Kennedy came to our show last year. He didn't get Bitcoin until the truckers. I've thanked Trudeau thousands of times. I mean, I can't thank Trudeau enough, right? For orange pilling that many people overnight with his actions was one of the most incredible Bitcoin orange pill events the world has ever seen, and it will continue to pay dividends. I believe in the end, Trudeau will be the punchline of almost everyone's orange pill experience. They'll say, look, we were giving our tax money to these low IQ, very stupid people, and they wasted it on the dumbest shit you'll ever imagine. He's the reason why we had to get rid of it all. And it's gonna happen. We're seeing the political environment align to get rid of the fake prison of two ideas, the fake prison of politics, the manufactured culture war fighting nonsense. And it's going to get replaced with the actual real tension, which is on centralizing power and decentralizing power. And Bitcoin is going to become the main contrast politically. And I think all the attention is going to come to it. And remember, all that it's going to take in a world where money is psychological, Bitcoin is a psychological commodity. The US dollar is a psychological commodity. The economy is a psychological engine. The word economy is really fake. It just means politics, right? Economics are just macroeconomics. When the stupid people with all their degrees tell you macro or micro, fake. There's only economics. There's politics added to economics. But that politics piece added to economics is going to have something like, now I'll say this about Trump, the most effective attack ever on Bitcoin was him saying he's not a fan. It really was, because he didn't argue and it wasn't boring and it was like, oh my God. But if Trump just says he's a fan, look out, because you're going to get the equal and opposite reaction, which means Bitcoin will become front and center for all debates on the future of the United States. And it really will be the organizing principle around which victory or defeat in World War III are declared.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about, and this is a fascinating conversation. By the way, Nolan, how are you on time?
Pretty good. What are we? 1:00? What time is it over there? 1:02? Yeah, I got another 20 minutes.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned World War III, right? I want to milk this to the end. We got to take advantage of Nolan still here. So you talk about World War III. What do you mean by that? Is this like because if you look at it from a historical context, governments have typically used wars when they default, right? So is this what you're talking about? The fourth turning, things are breaking, it's a reset.
So even when I said earlier about Bitcoin coming out of pandemic being the first to meet, so I believe, and that was in 2021, I've been calling World War III for years now. I mean, I believe it started around the Trump election time, but I'm not really sure. Probably a little before. Well, you could say it started in the financial crisis of 2008, right? That's the beginning of what happened. That's the beginning of new political narratives, particularly around race, right? Particularly around race, to supplant the old ones that people were starting to coalesce around with the Wall Street, Occupy, and all this stuff, right? So I'm not sure. You don't have to worry too much about a date. But what you have to understand is World War III has nothing to do with the other world wars, nothing at all. The only thing that connects it to World War II is that in World War II, it's more connected to World War I, frankly, right? World War I was about competing war machines, fiat and gold, right? Fiat won. America built a better war machine in World War I. We don't talk about World War II as a consolidation of World War I. Americans, that's still sort of kept from us, right? Let's say. Americans will do a reassessment of the world wars and all of these things. But what World War III is really about is the psychological operations which grew out of World War II and persisted from then on, getting right straight probably from the moment Kennedy is assassinated to an actual reorganization of the United States of America. And, remember, Kennedy was not able to control the Cuba situation while he was president. He was already the first president that we know of that was not master of the country, right? He was not. And there was things he could and couldn't do, and he knew it. And if you listen to his brother or his nephew on the campaign trail, he'll express exactly what happened at that time. So World War III, instead of the other world wars, which were really about propaganda systems versus financial systems, and military manufacturing, World War III looks to be more psychological and economic. And within the psychological and economic battlefront, there might be a little hot war. We're seeing it in Ukraine and Israel for sure. I think you'll see some in America this summer. I think we have a new reason to not meet in public coming our way. Who knows who's in America these days, right? So, and who knows what excuses you'll have to not meet anymore because of terrorism and whatever. So that could be it, right? That's part of what we're dealing with here. But World War III really being about countries versus individuals, about systems, about what countries look like going forward, the very concept of a nation state, what powers does it have, what does it do? I continue to make the argument that the world we live in is really just the machine we built to win World War II, which we never shut off. We never shut it off. We kept running the aircraft carriers, we kept running everything. And that's where the bureaucracy comes from. Now, what you see in legislation, for example, this week we also had the Chevron case, the Chevron doctrine at the Supreme Court coming into question. We're going to have the Jarkissi case come into question as well this year at the Supreme Court. Both of these are going to be limiting factors on the administrative state. They're going to be limiting factors on, for example, the SEC. All of the SEC is all of the SEC enforcement is unconstitutional. They shouldn't be able to do that. And that litigation is in front of the Supreme Court right now in America. And I believe the court will decide that the SEC in its current form is unconstitutional. And you're going to see this. And if that judgment comes through, it will actually make many departments in the federal government unconstitutional. And I think you're going to have an actual shrinking, exactly as Vivek says, a shrinking of the size of the thing that exists. You can see it in Texas right now, right? Texas is exercising their sovereignty against the will of the federal government. I think the states are going to become much more powerful and much more self-aware, and will start to exercise their powers more. So the forces of World War III are really about psychological systems, which I've argued here is really the money, and the economics, which are also money. It's really a psychological economic war based on incentive models, things like that, right? And luckily, all the technology we need seems to be coming online just as we need it. We're going to get the robots. We're going to get these electricity systems. We're going to get, Bitcoin is going to become the main financial platform on which to finance decentralized energy grids. That's going to be a major part of what we back, right? A decentralized energy grid that makes economic sense. So we're really, here's another way to put it. You can actually keep score in World War III in terms of centralizing and decentralizing forces measured in Bitcoin. And, when I see the ETFs, these are new participants coming into the fight. You're going to see it in Hong Kong. Again, the reason why we're doing a showdown there is because Hong Kong wants to bet against the CCP in some ways, right? And in this way in particular. So there's regular people out there. And here's the thing. Bitcoin is always at its strongest. And it's something you've been in it for 8 years, so you've only had a taste of this. When average Chinese people and average Americans are all in on Bitcoin, that's how the world changes. Mm-hmm. And they have more in common because of Bitcoin, just like the average Russian person, right? These people have more in common because of Bitcoin than they have that separates them. And they're going to realize that all they have that separates them is actually the thing they have in common, which is their governments and the proper amount of disdain they should have for them. So we're getting rid of the fake news. We're getting rid of the brainwashers, the enemy of the people. We're getting rid of the government systems, and we're going to win the psychological and economic war that World War III is. And we're going to win it because literally our psychological state is stronger, right? We don't care about dips. You get a 5%. Whoops. Whoa, buddy. I mean, they can't handle this shit, right? So it's one of the reasons why we're going to win. If Bitcoin crashed to $20,000 today, what would you like? You'd still do your show
I would
tomorrow?
be so happy because that means cheaper Bitcoin I get to buy. Yeah.
It would be hilarious. It would be hilarious. And then the boomers, I lost my money.
Government, please step in. They would ask the government to step in and they wouldn't be able to.
Did you see there was a tweet about that? They were talking about that on Twitter. Like, does Bitcoin need a bailout because it went down, 6%? Yes. And we're like, what are you guys talking about?
What is it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Guys, if you want to check out more Nolan's just rants and content, check out his YouTube channel. It's Nolan Ballery 1. You could find it on YouTube or Count BTC. You could search it. And you have an early morning show and called The Breakup, and you talk about all this, right?
Yeah, we go every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. We've been doing it since about 2021-ish. We had a few little pauses in the early days, so that's why we're only at episode 454, I think we did this morning. But yeah, most days of the week, we get together at 8 a.m. and we get a pretty nice live audience. We're at around 300 people get together every morning. And then we broadcast on Rumble as well, on the Bitcoin Magazine Rumble channel. That's where we get the majority of our viewers. And yeah, it's a pretty simple show. What I do is I start everything with Moscow time, which is the fakest news I can find. So let me read you some of them from today. Some of these are really good today. Here's one. What are Canadians willing to sacrifice in the fight against climate change? I got better ones. I did a Brian Stelter voice today. I did some Brian Stelter. I had the one, that everyone's talking about these days, which is the farming. Oh yeah, this was good. This is about incentives. So this is what we're up against, guys. All right, this is the incentive structure, but behind fiat wind farms. All right, this is our enemy. Farmer was offered cash and a night out at lap dancing club if he agreed to having a giant wind turbine on his land.
What's wrong with these people? I mean, it's fiat. It's right. It's fiat. It's, you said it, right? It's fiat's like rotting their brain in a way.
Oh, this one's good too. How meat and milk companies are racing to ease your climate guilt. A climate-friendly hamburger, a carbon-neutral glass of milk. As companies make bold claims, a heated debate erupts. So we read the fakest news we can find every morning. And then what I do afterwards is mainly take a look at the reasons why you're selling dollars, right? Because it's not just about buying Bitcoin. There's a reason why people are making the trade, right? It's not just that Bitcoin, you can sell Bitcoin from its, 21 million, it's got these attributes and this and that, right? That works. But what else works is look at how stupid Clown World is. Why would you ever think this thing is perpetuating? How can it possibly go forward? It can't. So you look for those instances that expose that, So today we were talking all about what good news it is in 2024 so far, that all the brainwashers are going out of business, right? All of the PSYOP perpetrators. So we had a little laugh at the LA Times firing everyone yesterday, and then, all that kind of stuff. So we were tracking Michael Malice's thoughts on it all, right? It's some pretty funny statements. If you don't know who Michael Malice is, he's one of the smartest anarcho-capitalists out there. And so he had a good laugh at some of these losers. And yeah, that's that kind of stuff,
Hell yeah. I mean, it seems like you're covering, the angle. I think at the top it says counting the score in World War III this way: centralization versus decentralization measured in Bitcoin, right? So yeah, I mean, it's great. I love the coverage and the way that your perspective. It's very unique. I'm gonna stick to my guns with what I said initially. It's because you've been a decade in Bitcoin, man. I've seen this before. The more you spend down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, like, the more based you become, and things just become more clear and clear and clear and clear, because you're on a Bitcoin standard, right? Life is better on a Bitcoin standard. Life is like nihilistic on a fiat standard. It's almost like it's like self-damaging in a way. It brings out the worst out of humanity and of human beings. Anyways, Opti, you have a shared screen.
Yeah, wait. Let Nolan jump in, and then we'll talk about his book. People wanted to talk about the book in the chat.
It's basically a confusopoly and requires too much cognitive load to participate in at this point. I mean, just think about what it takes to be successful in the fiat world today. You got to beat the bankers and the policymakers. If you don't have a 130 IQ, just move to Canada and apply for Canadian healthcare, and pretty soon you can get a needle, and that's the end. You're not going to make it, right? You're not going to make it. It's too hard. Now some people can, right? And those are the ones who say, if you just work a little harder, you'll save your money, all these people. So really what we're up against here is that idea. And 10 years in Bitcoin, what it allows you to do is just save your cognitive energy for actual creative expression or actual, strong and healthy commercial relationships. I love what I do for work. I love programming Bitcoin events. I love the waking up every day and doing the show with everyone, and so it helps you prioritize. It helps lower the burden of participating in the modern world, and that's where we're all headed, right? I think I've always said the only advantage that I have is I've had a little more time to think about what the world looks like on a Bitcoin standard, and I had to sort of accept it when I jumped off the cliff to be a full-time Bitcoiner years ago. I just had to say, well, maybe we win, maybe we lose. I'm going to operate under the assumption we're winning, and there's nothing else I can do other than that, and hope it works out. And Bitcoin was a couple $100 at the time, and
hell yeah.
So far, my biases have been confirmed. So I don't think
Hell yeah.
I think if Bitcoin dies, I'll be the last one to admit it. So I'll be very cognitively blinded by Bitcoin. So
oh man, well,
Stack sats and chill, simplify your life. But Nolan, before you go, everyone wanted to talk about your book that you were talking about in the beginning. So let's plug that real quick before you have to run.
Yeah, so it's all actually narrated by an AI. I wrote it, but it's narrated by an AI. So what happens is in this world, the AI help you. They're your Bitcoin wallet, but they also are your best friend. They help protect you from fake news. They help broadcast your life to the world. They're like sort of an integral part of how everyone lives. The way I set it up is that with this relationship with AI and it is filing a prose recount of a murder investigation that it went through. And so it puts out like news reports and video that you can recap the murder investigation, but you're getting like its log, right? So you're getting a log of this AI that had a very interesting investigation. And it's just to follow the Bitcoin thing. It's sort of my vision of what the world. So even you'd be interested to know probably this part. The frame of it is the fourth turning of Bitcoin in 80 years from now. So I went with what could actually affect Bitcoin in a way that could remove it as the center organizing principle of our economy. Like, what would it be, right? So I don't want to give it away, but it's something totally different and very, very fun and interesting, and an actual threat to. I'll give a little bit away. It involves synthetic wounds, but basically that's about all I can see that can destroy Bitcoin. So it's just a fun murder mystery. There's not much to it but enjoyment. You're along a ride with a eyeball, so it literally is like a. Oh, here's a fun thing about them too. So here's what I got right. I started writing this in about 2016, already betting then that AI would be our Bitcoin would scale, not engineering wise, but cognitively, that we would have this. So in my world, the Bitcoin is almost like rhinestones at this point, right? It's like they just move them around, but they don't even have to transact with them on chain. Like the cognition of the AI can sort of keep up, right? And you can do a lot of transactions with it. There's only time and money. That's it. That's all you can spend in this future world with no real material want or need. So it's a kind of utopia. So the AI itself, a little different than our AI. Whatever you see here is not exactly what I did. I made it a quantum processor. So within the quantum processor, to get over the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, the AI has to have faith, right? To know where the electron is around the proton, it has to have faith that it's there. And if it has faith in God, more or less, the God constant is what it's called, it can have synthetic thoughts and be alive. If it needs orders and commands, it reverts to being a sentient creature that just takes programming. So the ones that can imagine and create synthetic thoughts are most interested in spending time with humans because they're a little naive. They're like AI is today. It's like they could be tricked and stuff like that. So and they can lie. So I put all that in my story, and you're actually getting it from an untrustworthy narrator who's an AI, and it's just a fun murder mystery of this like innocent kind of AI working with a grizzled, one of the only detectives that remembered what real detective work was like. That wasn't just an AI subpoenaing and getting all the information that other eyeballs have recorded and bringing it in so that I can investigate it. It's really just about, oh no, in my story, there is a Bitcoin standard. Yeah, it's 100% a Bitcoin standard, 100%. There's only Bitcoin and time, that's it. There's one market, time for Bitcoin. That's it. It's a straight time is money world. So a real Bitcoin standard. So yeah, it's just, where did the money go? What's going on? Why did they do it? What's happening? Murder mystery.
Very, very cool. Very cool.
Where can people find this?
So I actually did on YouTube. You can see on the main page, chapter 1, I made a graphic audiobook using an AI voice to even do the narration. A little experimental. But so if you go to home, yeah, there we go. So that's, yeah, it'll play. So,
very cool. Oh, the music.
Most people call me Voice, even though I have a personality and sound like a real person. They also call me an eyeball, even though the registered trademark is AI ball.
Woo! Okay, guys, if you want to see it, go ahead to Nolan's channel. You can listen to it. You can check it out.
You can download, I think, the first, 15 chapters maybe, on my website, nolanbarley.com.
Very cool.
I tried to make more of these videos. The AI voice was too temperamental. I'm really rude to AI, so I called her a dumb bitch about 100 times because I'm not nice to Alexa or.
Well, when the AI takes over us and subjugates us as their slaves, Nolan's going to be in the gulags.
I've been so rude to them. To trigger people in my old New York City office, I used to always be rude to Alexa and watch how even woke people can't handle if you're rude to Alexa.
Oh, that's funny.
Alexa, you stupid bitch, shut up.
Oh, man. Oh, that's hilarious.
I can't handle it,
Oh, man, that's hilarious.
Alexa.
That's hilarious.
So it didn't go, the other videos I couldn't master the language, but you can read it all. If I would hire someone to do it, I could, a sound person in the future, but we'll get there someday.
Nolan, it's been an honor to have you on the show, man. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys, check out Nolan's social media details and his website. Check out his channel, subscribe to his channel so you can get more Nolan doses. We really, really enjoy it when he comes on the show. Thanks, Nolan. Appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, man, dude, I was just taken through a journey. It was great. I really enjoyed that. So guys, we still have the news to talk about today, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. And we're going to talk about this pretty big update. Essentially, 26 Bitcoin companies sign a letter to FinCEN.
Just get into it.
Okay. All right. All right. Fine.
We're running out of time. Get into it.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor. Have you ever wanted to get into Bitcoin mining and don't know where to start? That's why I want to introduce you to Scott's Build a Mine Bootcamp. He will show you how to build your own Bitcoin mine, how to get the project funded, how to get your facility filled with miners as quickly as possible. With a little luck, and by putting all his techniques and strategies to work that he's developed mining Bitcoin for the last 6 years, you could be mining 5 million Satoshis per day or 0.05 Bitcoin in less than 3 months. On the free webinar, he will give you a high-level roadmap that will help you get on your way to building, owning, and operating your own Bitcoin mining farm. Begin your mining journey today. Register for the free webinar now. Click the link in the description of the video below or contact Scott directly on Telegram using his handle @OfferedScott and learn how to mine those precious Satoshis.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more.
All right, everybody. So today's news covering the FinCEN. So FinCEN had this crazy proposal that they took advantage of this BS article, basically connecting Bitcoin to terrorism. It was revealed after the fact that, it was a misrepresentation of data, but that didn't stop Elizabeth Warren to capitalize it and to put pressure on the Treasury. And, of course, the Treasury doesn't like Bitcoin. I think Nolan really covered that. Essentially, World War III, the battle to come, decentralization versus centralization. And, of course, the centralized forces are going to try to, maintain that privilege of being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for. So, this was a big deal by essentially the community and all the Bitcoin companies in the community. They wrote a letter to FinCEN. I was taking a look at the entire letter. It's actually pretty long, very, very thorough. But I do want to give a shout out to all these companies. So Samurai Wallet, 1031, River, Strike, Ronin Dojo, Swan, Primal, Grid, Zaprite, Peach, Mempool Space, Upstream Data, Stack, Vita, Voltage, CoinKite, Mutiny, Standard Bitcoin Co., Satoshi Energy, Cathedra, Anchor Watch, Bitnob, Oshi, Battery, Fold, and Start9. So, kind of a big deal, like I said. Let me read you part of the proposal. So on the very top, it says, the proposed special measures would unreasonably infringe upon the legitimate financial privacy interests of cryptocurrency users and would apply to a variety of digital techniques that are not mixing transactions at all, but rather simply represent good cybersecurity practices. Moreover, the proposed special measures are unnecessary to achieve FinCEN's aim, and we encourage FinCEN to either withdraw the mixing transaction altogether or to pursue a less invasive, less restrictive, and more effective approach. The same approach it has used since its first enforcement activities in the cryptocurrency space in 2013. So, and then what are some of these things? So essentially, it would require, every time you use a Bitcoin address, right? It essentially penalizes you for, Bitcoin best practices, right? It could potentially put Lightning in jeopardy where like the reporting becomes so ridiculous, right? It doesn't want you to use a new address every time you receive Bitcoin. Like, it's so ridiculous, but I think it's meant to be ridiculous. Like the fact that they used the whole terrorism thing that was discovered after the fact that they misrepresented the data for a political end goal, tells you that this thing was always political. It was never about the truth. It was never about stopping terrorism. They just needed that as a reason, as a justification, right? And of course, you had Elizabeth Warren waiting on the sidelines, for this opportunity, right? She has a bill right now in Congress. 20 senators have signed up for it. That will essentially be a ban on Bitcoin self-custody and Bitcoin mining in the United States. So exactly, someone in the comments says for your protection. Of course, it's always under the guise of for your protection. Anyways, so the letter it outlines 6 key points. Point number 1, FinCEN should exercise caution and either withdraw entirely or narrowly tailor the fixing transaction NPRM, because if adopted, the mixing transaction NPRM would not only represent the first time FinCEN used its Section 311 powers against a class of transactions, but also the first time FinCEN has ever imposed Special Measure 1. The mixing transaction NPRM proposes a rule that is an improper and overbroad application of Section 311, measures to achieve transaction surveillance and suppression that the FinCEN does not otherwise have a lawful basis to undertake. And remember what the Fourth Amendment is in the United States: no unreasonable search and seizure. I think this special proposal or this mixing transaction NPRM is completely, against that, in my opinion. So the third is the mixing transaction NPRM should be withdrawn because the proposed definition of the CVC mixing is overbroad and targets lawful activity in a way that makes the agency's proposed action arbitrary and capricious. For the mixing transaction NPRM should be withdrawn because its inaccurate depiction of standard security practices as mixing impermissibly restricts the capacity of users to protect their property so that FinCEN can conduct a phishing expedition. 100% agree with that. The mixing transaction NPRM should be withdrawn or significantly narrowed in scope because FinCEN's required statutory analysis fails to adequately value the legitimate uses of CVC mixing services and unduly burdens legitimate users and financial institutions. 6, the mixing transaction NPRM should be withdrawn because it requires covered financial institutions to perform law enforcement function to accomplish FinCEN's AML goals, which FinCEN, DOJ, and law enforcement can achieve using existing tools when they have a proper legal basis to employ those tools. So essentially what they're saying is like, dude, like, you're just trying to like surveil everyone at one time at all times. And that's basically what they're saying. And like, again, against the Fourth Amendment, because like they have these tools, they have the surveillance tools, but only if someone gets like, accused of a crime. But essentially what they're saying is like, no, we just need these surveillance all the time because people are going to commit crime. It's a very slippery slope. And again, like it's so ridiculous. You can't be applied to Bitcoin. Like the idea that somehow you're mixing because you're using a new address every time you receive Bitcoin. Like that's bullshit. That's an attempt. That's a political move. You don't like this thing. Like just admit that you don't like this thing. That's what it's about. Like the fact that they used the whole terrorism thing and then the Binance press conference. I remember when I hosted that Swan space, I was like so petrified. Opti was like texting me in the background. It's like, Nico, catch your breath. Because that thing, I was like, holy crap, they're going to try to ban self-custody. In that entire press conference, they weren't even talking about they're like, yeah, CZ did these things, but they mentioned the word terrorism 15 times. Okay. And it was like the top people, in the US government. You had Janet Yellen up there. You had Merrick Garland, right? You had all these people and they're just like trying to make that connection. And you've heard this wording from Elizabeth Warren before. And you're just like, what are they trying to do there? It's very obvious what they're trying to do. So yeah, I mean, I think it's BS. I'm really glad that like the community came together. All these Bitcoin companies like sent in a unified message and a very well written and well thought out message. Because I think that they thought that they were going to get away with this in the dead of night and that no one was going to notice. And I think the exact opposite happened. The Bitcoin community is awake. We know what's going on. We're aware. And this is just a bunch of bullshit. That's my opinion. Anyways, Opti, what's your take?
Well, of course, couldn't agree more with that last point. But rolling back a little bit, I think this is a great initiative by these Bitcoin companies, and I would like to see more Bitcoin companies either, add their name to this, or I don't know exactly what the mechanics of this are. But the cynic in me is just kind of thinking like it doesn't even matter. Like they're not going to listen to what we're doing as an industry. It kind of leans to the idea of you can't take your rights away from the oppressors. Like you got to take them. So like I really do like to see this. I think this is an awesome initiative. When I saw this come across my Twitter, what was it, yesterday, I believe, it was like, all right, sweet. Like where people actually care and they're trying to fight this. Like that's awesome as far as I'm concerned. But again, the cynic in me, the skeptic in me is like, you think Elizabeth Warren's going to care because we wrote a paper, we wrote a letter to her, like, no, but I do believe that maybe laying out our claims in a nice, succinct letter will show the people that are on the fence that really don't know what's going on, to explain to them how nefarious this actually is, the Elizabeth Warren bills, the FinCEN proposals, and just how how far they are reaching to take our liberties and our freedoms. Of course, we already live in a digital world and our money's already digital. So like they can pretty much do all the stuff they want to do to Bitcoin in a roundabout way. And I really loved how Nolan was saying this earlier in the show, how this is an economic war. And, Nico, we've been saying it for a while on the show that it is Bitcoin or it is slavery. It is Bitcoin or it is the CBDC system. And this is the future we are heading. They want to totally control you. It is always about control. And it will always be about control. And what we're seeing right now coming from the regulators, the politicians, governments, and even Wall Street themselves, or like SEC, the institutions they are all trying to fit Bitcoin into the fiat box. And it's just awesome to see them scramble and to see them, flap in the wind and be just so concerned with people wanting to save in something that they cannot control, that they can't steal. Again, we brought the Fed paper, Nolan was talking about it today, that the main psychological tool of control is money. It's always about the money. It will always be about the money until we take that power away from them. And that's what Bitcoin is. It's a tool for freedom. It's, what Sailor always say, property rights encrypted in cyberspace or whatever it is. And as we move forward, I think it's naive of everyone in Bitcoin to believe that they're not going to fight. What's the quote we always say, Nico? They won't go quietly into that good night.
Yeah.
if you're in these positions of power, of course you're not going to just give up that power without a fight. And so this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the powers that be try to, for lack of a better term, psyop the masses into basically their own dystopian totalitarian slavery for the rest of humanity. Like, it's really nefarious and disgusting that this is where we are. And someone said in the chat, and I totally agree with this, is like, it's absolutely amazing how much these people hate the Constitution. Like, these people took an oath to the Constitution to maintain what made America great in the first place. And again, don't tomatoes into the whole Trump thing or whatever. But the fact that they constantly try to roll stuff out and take more and more power away from us as citizens, it just shows how afraid they are of sovereign, freedom-minded people. And this is the importance of showing up every single day, trying to spread that message outside of our Bitcoin echo chamber. And, you know, as much as I'm being cynical about this letter in the first place, just like showing people, look, what we're doing here isn't as nefarious as the powers that be would like to make it out to be, because, like, this is not about what are all the things they say about us, like we're financial criminals, we're domestic terrorists, like we're psychopaths, we're only here to launder money.
Sophisticated shadow.
Yeah, like really all we're doing is we realize the mechanisms of control out there, and it is the dollar. And look, if you just do a basic research on how much the dollar has dwindled in the last 100 years, like, it's so obvious to us that we are getting stolen from, and not only in America, just in general. The dollar is the world reserve currency, so everyone is getting poorer, while those people in power are getting richer and richer, and they're trying to consolidate all the resources. And all of us Bitcoiners are just kind of like, hey, we don't have to take this abuse anymore. Like, this doesn't have to happen. And yet they still continue to try to roll out more and more things to control us. And it's just like, man, it really does feel like this is the final battle. At least we're in the early stages. Like, the war is happening now, and it's happening in, as Nolan was saying earlier, in a psychological manner. It is all an attempt to just psyop the masses into basically enjoying their slavery. What's the Klaus Schwab tweet or quote? You know, you will own nothing and be happy. And we're just sitting here like, no, we're going to own Bitcoin and be extremely happy. Yes, we're going to own nothing other than Bitcoin. But other than that, like, life is good. And hence why I did in the chat, you know, has your life improved while you've personally been on a Bitcoin standard? Is because we constantly see this happen. It happened for Nico and I. It's happened to all my friends that are Bitcoiners. It's like, as Nolan said, and I really love how he said it earlier, it's like, once you start to save in Bitcoin, you can unplug from all the madness. You don't have to participate in the clown world. You don't have to participate in the circus that is mainstream media, politics in general. You just save in Bitcoin and put your mental energy towards the things that you enjoy. You unplug, you create things you want to see in the world, and you live the life that we were all promised as kids, as children, you know, growing up in a freedom-minded world. You know, the white picket fence, the dream of, hey, if I bootstrap myself, if I work hard, I can live a good life. And that's been stolen from everyone in the world, not just Americans and not just people in the first world. Every single one of us is feeling the problems of fiat debasement, and we're seeing this play out in real time. This is why so many people are so pissed off. This is why everyone is protesting. This is why you feel this. If you're not in Bitcoin, if you're in normal popular culture, this is why you feel that nihilism, that just like straight demoralization of culture, is because we are all getting poorer, and most people don't know that there's a solution to this. Most people don't even know they have a problem.
They don't even know what's going on. Like,
exactly.
They just think like the world, that's the way the world is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. And it's like, that's where Bitcoin really changes. And we actually released a poll asking the audience, has your life improved on the Bitcoin standard? 61% of you said yes. 33% of you said not yet, and 4% of you said no.
And the not yet is just that they just started stacking. The
so
yes.
like I look, and this is why we don't really talk about the price. Like, we say the price in the morning, but like we don't just pull up charts and whatever. Like, I swear to you, adopt Bitcoin, hold it for a minimum of 4 years, and you will see your life get better, right? you got to get out of that fiat mindset, that fiat matrix, and get on a Bitcoin standard, and just everything gets cheaper. Your life gets better. You think more long term. You get more optimistic about the future. I'm telling you, it's really, really, really useful. And I completely agree with Nolan. He had an incredible take. Once the rest of the world is on that, I think we're going to see a renaissance in humanity. Like, I can't wait for that time. Because I think it's going to bring out the best in humanity, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that future. Hopefully I see it in my lifetime. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed the show.
Wow, so bearish.
Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed the show and you know what to do, smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. But the number one thing you could do to help push this peaceful Bitcoin revolution is share Bitcoin content. Share Nolan's content, share Simply's content, share Bitcoin content in general. We got to win over the culture. Share Bitcoin music, share Bitcoin podcasts, share Bitcoin everything. That's how we win.
Make the arts, guys. Yeah. Make the culture. Participating and propagating the memes and the signal. This is how we win.
Let's make America optimistic again. I think that's the line.
We're moving forward. We're moving forward. Don't look backward. We're building the new world as we speak.
Vote Opti 2024. Anyways,
it wouldn't work. Wait. Before we go, Nico, shouts out to our Substack. Shouts out to all the subscribers. It is growing. Shouts out to our boy Zach that's been dropping hot fire. He's got a running narrative. I love the voice that he is cultivating over there. We just dropped, I think this might be one of the best articles we dropped on our Substack. It's a fireside chat with Bitcoin. And it's such a sweet framing of what is going on in the Bitcoin space and what we're all doing here as individuals. Read it and share it to your friends, because it really goes from point A to point B. And I don't know, like maybe 1,500 words or something. I don't know. I didn't count, but it really, really, in my opinion, frames what's going on here in a very, very sweet way. So shouts out to everyone subscribing to our Substack. We love you guys. We're going to go super hard in 2024 and give you guys that signal. We're on the mission.
We're on the mission. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow for a new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.